Hey, great to have you here. In today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different. I want to look at building a PC for the first time. This is intended to be from a beginner's perspective, realizing there's a lot I don't know. I thought it could be fun for either you as another novice going through the journey with me, or even as an expert giving your input, hopefully not thinking I'm too terribly wrong. Either way, I encourage you to leave any feedback or advice down in the comments. As far as why I want to build a PC, as mentioned, I've never done so, and in making these videos, I've stuck with basic tools on a tablet, and I'd like to explore expanding with capabilities available on a PC, as well as any other benefits such as an improved gaming experience and so forth. For the future of this channel, I really hope to expand further into what I've done already with collectibles, but also branch out into things like movies, gaming, music, and so forth. That's just kind of a bit of a background on my goal here. When it comes to building a PC, I know the basic parts. I've utilized forums as well as PC Part Picker, which we'll be using today. At first, it was quite overwhelming learning new terms, and there certainly feels like a barrier to entry here. But over time, I've gotten some of the lingo, which I'll be covering. So now, let's just jump straight into the build. Alright, jump into the PC Part Picker website. As you can see here, we have the Start Your Build option. When you go to the website, there's also different build guides that you can kind of craft your build based off what they suggest, as well as any pre-builts that you can select as well. As we mentioned, for the sake of this video and sake of my purposes, we're going to be building a brand new PC, so we'll click Start Your Build here. And from here, you kind of see the main components that are made up of a computer. We have the main 8 ones: the CPU, the cooler, motherboard, memory, storage, video card, case, and power supply, as well as the operating system and monitor. There's other options here as well, such as a keyboard and mouse and so forth, but we'll be starting kind of off with the CPU at the top of the list here. From my understanding, the CPU is somewhat of the brain of the computer. It's kind of what drives a lot of the functionality with it. This plus the graphics card, it sounds like is really where you want to spend your money as far as high quality products that you're ultimately selecting. As you can see here, we have the AMD options, we have the Intel options. Those are the two main manufacturers that we have when it comes to CPUs. We're actually going to wind up selecting just the top selection here, the AMD Ryzen 7 7800 X3D. This is one that, from a gaming perspective, is supposedly the elite option. I know when it comes to video editing, there's stuff like the 7950 that apparently may be a little bit more optimal just with the additional cores you get there. But for my sake, as far as building a first PC, 7800 should perform adequately, so that's something we're going to be ultimately selecting and adding to our card here. Now, before jumping into the other parts, I want to jump right over to the Micro Center page. So this is a call I want to have. So at Micro Center, they have different bundles. As you can see here, this is a bundle of CPU, motherboard, and memory. So we have the 7800 X3D that I just selected for the CPU. With that comes the Gigabyte B650 motherboard, as well as the G.Skill Flare X5 memory piece there. So I mainly really am looking to get that 7800 X3D, but based off of the bundle available, I'm fine with getting these other two pieces. If I was selecting, I may, pick different options, but based off the deal we have here, as you can see, this is widely on sale. We have the $665 original price dropping down to $479. Typically, this goes on sale for $499. I've seen it as low as $429, but even at that $499 price, it seems to be a great deal as far as, especially for a first build, the value that you're really getting here. So we're going to wind up selecting these two products with our Ryzen 7800 X3D when we're back on the PC Part Picker website. All right, so going back over there, we have our cooler we're going to start with here with. So I know there's various ways to cool your CPU. You have air and water with a lot of AIO systems. I personally am probably going to lean towards just air. I know there's a lot of flashy aesthetics you can do with the water. With both of them, you can do a lot of fancy lighting and coloring with the RGB type situations here. You can see a few of the options here with the very aesthetically pleasing colors that a lot of people choose. I think I'm going to lean towards just doing your standard fan, not needing any extras. I know the Noctua NH-D15 on here is listed as one that's really highly sought after. For my purposes, for a first build, I think I'm going to lean towards that one we have on top here, the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 SE. So we'll go with that one. And then when we jumped up to the motherboard, as mentioned, we're going to be choosing that Gigabyte B650 Gaming X AX2. You can see the third one here is a variation of that, but I'm going to want to make sure I select the correct one that we're going to be going with. And as you can see on the left side, you can kind of filter by manufacturer as well if you want there. If we scroll down, we see we have the Gigabyte B650 Gaming XV2 here at the bottom. I'm going to add that. And the motherboard purpose-wise, I believe this is kind of like the highway of your computer. It's really connecting the various aspects of it. So, as mentioned, the CPU is kind of more of the brain. Motherboard, I think, is more of the highway where it's doing a lot of the connecting the various pieces where you all kind of align and get them to talk to one another. All right, looking at memory here. So, I know this is another one that we selected from that bundle. We had that G.Skill Flare X5. We want to make sure we pick the correct one. It's the one here on bottom. I know there's a lot of similar names, and I've had to kind of look at it myself. The one on bottom here has that latency of 30 as opposed to, there's another one on here that has 36. So we'll select this bottom one here. And as far as use or purpose goes, my understanding of the memory is really kind of that short-term data storage. My understanding, as I said, goes storage is your long-term memory, where it's just a lot of your hard drive and storage that you're having over the term of your computer, but memory is really those kind of short-term processes that'll take place. So jumping now into the storage category, this is one that I lean towards going with the Samsung 990 Pro. I think 2 terabytes is good enough, so that's ultimately what we're going to go with, but the 980 and 990 on here are both listed at the same price. I know a lot of times it'll be dependent on where you buy it from, but they're both showing the 169, so for the sake of this purposes for today, we're going to wind up going with that 990 Pro. And there's a lot of different companies that you can ultimately go with here, but that's one we're going to ultimately be selecting. And then jumping down to video cards. So I mentioned the CPU and graphics card are really the two places that you really want to spend your money effectively. I've kind of bounced back and forth whether or not I wanted to go very extreme when it comes to high quality builds with like a 4090 or something like that, but I think for the purposes of a first build, 4090 is probably not necessary at this point. I think something like 1440p gaming and, not necessarily the best of the best graphics is probably all I need at this point. So I've bounced around between a few of the 470 options. Today we're going to be selecting a 470 Super, so we're going to make things a little bit easier and just filter out by that. And then looking at kind of the options we have here, I've debated on a few of these. I'm going to just filter it down by pricing as well to make it a little bit easier to navigate. I originally was leaning potentially towards this Asus Dual OC here, but I've heard that I think the coil whine is a bit of an issue with that one. I think a lot of times, similar to other products that you'll buy, the specific one you get is going to be possibly impacting your experience. So some people may have a big issue with that, some people may not. I've seen a lot of people mention that. I know there's issues with probably all of these across the board, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be selecting the Gigabyte Gaming OC here. All right, and then when it comes to case, this is probably another category that I've bounced around a lot with, not sure really which direction I want to go with. Originally, I thought the Corsair 4000D Airflow was one I wanted to go with. As you can see, the ratings here, there's just 324 ratings, which is way more than any other case that I can see on here. So that caught my eye originally. I went to go see it in person. It was a little bit smaller. I was looking also at the 5000D, which is probably where I lean at this point in time. I know there's a lot of great options here. Lian Li seems to be like one of the premier aesthetically pleasing options. I was talking to somebody at one point who mentioned the LandCool 3 was their recommendation. For the sake of today and potentially what I'll wind up going with, we're going to select that Corsair 5000D Airflow. You can see on here, I'm going to put it on the bottom here. Still has great reviews, 50 reviews of all 5 stars. It's a little bit pricier. I think a lot of times the prices on here can fluctuate dramatically. Like I know that 4000D at the top is 105. I've seen it at 89 bucks. So probably just depends on when you catch these as far as what the actual cost is going to be. But this is one where, similar to the fans, it's really just, are you trying to go with some aesthetically pleasing option? I know, as you can see here, Fractal has a lot of good options as well. But for the sake of today, we're going to go with that 5000D Airflow for our selection. All right, almost at the end here. Now we have to choose a power supply. So one kind of nice feature, I'm going to go back real quick, is that at the very top right here, where it says estimated wattage, it'll tell you what you selected to this point and how much wattage that'll roughly wind up using. So you want to use that as kind of a barometer as far as what type of power supply you're ultimately going to need. I've heard that it's good to do kind of an extra 25% beyond what that estimated wattage is. So we're going to kind of do that. I may go a little bit higher end just because we want to make sure that we don't wind up, limiting ourselves for future changes possibly too. So you can see on here, variety of options, and they'll show kind of their wattage amounts that kind of vary depending on which product. A lot of Corsair stuff on here. I know there's just a wide variety of companies similar to the cases that make these. I know Seasonic is one that's really well thought of. For the sake of today, I'm going to go with the Corsair 850X. You can see on here, I'm going to set it so it's near the bottom, third from bottom here at $149. I think 850 seems to be good enough. You could do something like a 750 probably, but just for the extra reassurance. And I've heard that I think the X is more reliable than maybe the E option. I'm not an expert on kind of the variations of the power supplies, but we're going to choose the 850X here for today. All right, almost done now. So operating system, I know this is one where the prices you can pay for Windows dramatically varies. As you can see here, it looks like it's 110 now. I know it's typically that 120 range. People will find other ways to get their Windows services, whether it's a key that they purchase online. I know I have prior product codes that I never wound up using for prior versions of Windows that it sounds like you may not be able to use today. So ultimately going to wind up having to go with some version of Windows here. We'll just add this top one as just kind of an example here for today. And then monitor. This is one I have not dove too much into as far as knowing exactly what I want. As I mentioned to you, I originally had the 4090 selected, so that would have been something more 4K related, but switching back to the 470 Super, 1440p is really what I'm thinking for the resolution here. So we're going to do a little bit of filtering out with this. And I've heard things like the Dell Alienware are really good options. As you can see kind of by pricing, they are way more expensive just with those OLED screens. As far as the paneling options, I've heard VA is maybe not the direction you want to go in, and IPS is more the direction if you're not going to do OLED. So I'm probably going to wind up selecting one of those options there. I know when I spoke to somebody as well, they were advising, the monitor they used was the LG 32 GP750. I don't know if that's the one I'm ultimately going to go with. It's one that's kind of further down when it comes to filtering here, but you can see, for example, the 850 LG is listed at $300. That's probably the price point I'll lean towards once again for a first build. I don't want to necessarily just go guns a-blazing as far as just spending a lot on a monitor. Obviously, you can see the reviews here as well. The top option, that Asus one, has 87 reviews with 5 stars around that 300 price point as well. So probably another good option. Just for the sake of selection of roughly the cost I'd be looking at, I'm going to choose that LG 850. So we'll add that here. And that kind of summarizes where we're at as far as total cost. As mentioned, if you need a keyboard and mouse as well, so there's a little extra pieces you can add. Obviously, if you want speakers, headsets, any microphones, so other pieces as well. But this is kind of what it roughly would look like to get a pretty decent quality starting point for a first PC build that'll wind up, as you can see, the total winds up being around that $2,000 price point. So relatively reasonable. I know if you wind up choosing a 4090 graphics card, that alone can be about $2,000. So it can just widely vary depending on specifically that product. It's kind of the most expensive thing here. You can see the breakdown, that being $600 of the $2,000. So definitely one of the pricier aspects of building a PC. But I know I kind of ran through that kind of rapidly and a little bit of free flowing with it. So let me know what you guys think. Is there anything that I'm missing for a first PC build? If there's anything that you, as somebody who's built PCs before, would advise me saying, hey, that's actually not a good idea, look in this direction instead. Would love any feedback there. Or if hopefully this is potentially helpful if you're building your own first new PC, at least giving you kind of the tools to go to this website and navigate yourself and make selections that may make sense best for you. So either way, as I said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Any additional feedback would be appreciated. Thanks you guys for watching today, and hope to talk to you again soon.